Thought we was playing? Y'all thought this was for play, huh? Nah, this serious business. Now, ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado,
For believers, they're spitting truth up in the stew.
Okay.
Each with different flavors, you can savor, you can chew. Talking life, love, and Christ, just to name a few. Grab a seat at the table, we got a bowl that's just for you.
Okay.
Trey, stay whipping up the work in the kitchen. And Whit, we can't keep up with the heat that she be dishing. And height, he had the sight, he was blessed with the vision. And me, I'm in the back, I'll be handling the dishes. I hope you don't mind if I speed it up. Stay at the beat as I beat it up. Serving it cold, you can heat it up. The food is good, you should eat it up. Thank the Lord for redeeming us. For the four of us teaming up. Lifestyle was dirty, he cleaned it up. Gave us the voice, now we speaking up.
told y'all. And that's light work. I had to contain him from giving y'all more. That's light work. Stay tuned.
Podcast.
What up, y'all?
What's going on?
What it do?
Man,
Good evening.
full table today.
A
This the
little
whip
G.
running man right there.
She has moves.
Yes, we're
I
back.
wish. I
You got
really wish.
a little show to move.
Everybody
I
can
got
do
a
the
little
cool
bit. I
dance
can do
and
a little
stuff.
too.
Just
Everybody got a little
See?
something in them.
I can like find the rhythm, but I can't keep it.
Just
You know what I'm saying? Like I can
Oh,
locate
As
it,
long as you can
but I
find
can't
it for a
stay
little
there.
bit. As long as you can
If you can
find it.
surf swag and you do this,
Surf swag.
what's it called?
Swag surf.
Swag surf.
Wow.
You know,
Dyslexia.
the kids.
Chris is dyslexic.
You know what I'm saying?
Chris is really
Y'all get
dyslexic.
it. Y'all get it.
Chris thought it was Friday the 13th and Halloween at the same time.
Well, we're back with a full table. You know, Kiera, thank you for coming back.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you for having
Glad
me.
we didn't
Shout
run you
out.
off. Don't
Uh-huh,
care.
not all the way.
Not all the way. She
Okay.
said I can do
Okay.
at least one more.
We only had to pay her a little bit to come back.
I know. Friendship. That's what
Don't
you
be
call
putting
it,
that out there because I heard y'all paying for
y'all
guests.
pay- yeah.
I get episodes.
$8
Hey, whopping dollars.
minus taxes.
Shout out to FK Studio.
Always.
Again, Fred.
Shout out to Fred.
Still
Thank you,
hosting
man.
us. Still putting up with us.
Can you tax $8?
You can.
That's disrespectful.
It's very disrespectful.
Listen, the government gonna get their
Listen.
8.25%.
Probably
They're gonna take as much as they
They don't
can.
care if
Was
it's a
this a
50-cent purchase.
They're gonna take as much
What's
as
the
they can.
contract?
Contract
$8,
whatever
you
they're
know?
not taxing.
They're gonna take as much as they can.
Okay.
We
But
see
yeah.
$4.75 of that.
We still
Wow.
at FK though. Appreciate Fred for rocking with us still.
Definitely.
Trey, welcome back, sir. You was gone for a week. We missed you.
Welcome back.
I missed y'all too.
You was on your own little love adventure though. You know, we were talking love. You were experiencing love.
Now,
Yeah.
you said
Right
you
now.
got married this weekend?
Something. Yeah, tell the people what happened. What had happened this weekend?
Rumors.
They call that eloping. That ain't
Oh,
marriage.
man.
These rumors.
You just gonna be lying on the airwaves.
That's
crazy.
people for a little clarity.
That's crazy. No, I went to a wedding. One of my longtime friends, Talia, she got married.
Italian?
Congratulations, Talia.
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 Shout out to Talia.
Big
Did you
ups
say
to Talia.
Italian?
I thought
He did.
I thought he said Italia.
He made that
I
up.
thought it sounded exotic.
Was her name Italics?
Italics. Indeed.
Talia. Sorry, girl.
Big ups to the Grays, Talia and Patrick Gray and Lil Lena Gray. They have a child as well. Baby
That's
girl.
solid.
We love love.
So we do love love and we love children. Yeah, so it was good, man. It was really beautiful. So yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Did you catch the bouquet?
Shut up.
Men don't. It's just been too much.
Me do catch something on. Don't they catch the garden?
garden.
The garden.
Not the
garden.
bouquet, though.
Oh, sorry. I don't really go to weddings.
Once again, Chris is dyslexic. Once again.
Did you catch the what's it
Garter.
called?
Garter belt.
Nah. They had we was a little turned by the time they.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, everybody was pretty turned by the time
They were
got
throwing
to
tables and chairs.
Is it
and
open
That's
bar
it.
cash
Yeah,
bar?
catch the table.
It was what do they call it? Bar stock.
A bar
What
stock.
is that?
So basically, you pay for the bartender,
Okay.
and everybody that comes to the wedding just donates a bottle to the bar.
That's what I'm talking
I like
about.
I like that.
Okay, come on. That's a
Yeah,
good
it
way.
works. And it turned out pretty well because she also had a Super Bowl party. Like she had her wedding reception,
And then the
and the Super Bowl
Same
party.
day. You're
Oh,
right.
this
So
is real
it
life.
Yeah, so I mean, we were there all day, but it was really cool. It was really fun.
A bar stock.
Yeah,
Write that down.
It turned out really
Write that down.
You gonna write that, put that on your
Future
Pinterest
ideas.
board.
Just in case.
Next time, everybody bring a bottle.
I'm like, you know.
I mean, and truthfully, when you think
Access
about
fee
it,
is a bottle.
that's usually how most weddings go. Most people just pull up with their own personal bottle and either pull up in the car or do what they gotta do.
Really?
I'll give you that.
See, I'm not a frequent wedding attendee, so I wouldn't know.
Who's
these
gonna
things.
invite Chris to a wedding?
I'm going to a few this year, so
Oh.
maybe I'll learn some
some manners.
Shameless
You know
plug.
how to conduct myself. You know
How
what
to
I'm
conduct
saying?
just manners.
Manners.
Some wedding etiquette.
And where the etiquette? I don't have it.
You only need it for the first half.
Chris gonna be cheering. Yeah, man, do it, bro. That's it. That's it.
That's the one.
It's not the time, sir. Not the time.
What they say on International Players Anthem?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Read some literature.
Read
Read some literature on the subject. You sure? You know
Yeah,
we
that's
got
gonna
your
be
back.
that's gonna be
Kylo
me.
Pratt.
I'm that guy. If I don't believe in it, I'm gonna let you know.
Oh wow.
So you
No,
be the one
no,
that's
no.
objecting.
I'll play it.
Please
I'll
don't
be
be
that
that
guy. I just wouldn't come.
That's better.
That's
I'm
that's
not- I
a
just
good
wouldn't
that's a
come.
good
That's
deal.
actually
Yeah.
better. That's
I
actually
don't
better.
believe in it. Why would I be there?
Nah, Chris,
I've
why
actually
don't you
had
come to a
that
wedding?
had that conversation with a few different people. Like, if they don't believe in somebody's union, like it's God honoring, they won't show up because I mean that's a sign of
You in agreement?
Yeah, basically, if you attend the wedding, it's saying that you're gonna help the groom and bride to
spiritually. Yeah.
spiritually remain together and things like that too.
Is that what it meant? Because in biblical times, they had weddings worth of 500 people, and I know they didn't expect 500 drunk people for 3 weeks to be truly contributing to their life.
Nah, probably not.
I'm
I can't
thinking it was
speak
just a
to it.
party.
You probably
I can only speak to Chris Hype. And if my spirit tells me to object, then I just won't show up for your sake. I think that's best for everybody. I think that's best for everybody.
What if it
involved.
tells you to object only when the pastor's like, "Speak now, if ever hold your peace"?
Ooh.
What if that's
gonna be-
when you
I'm
fail?
sorry to you.
You think the Lord would put that on you?
Sorry to you.
I'm sorry too.
But I must be obedient. nah, I'm joking. I would pull you to the side. Like, I know it's too late, but
I just want to put that out there. You know, if you make this mistake.
No, it's too late.
What you say, I
it's a
do.
Come on.
quick disclaimer. It's kind of light.
Okay. One more housekeeping item. Actually, two more before we hop into it. Real. Back in
Hello.
the pulpit today.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
We are so blessed to have some pastors and some people who speak in churches, you know, on the squad. Cause it's like you get access to getting fed all the time. You know, all I gotta do is pick up the phone, bro. So what did you feed the people with today?
My message today was titled "A Deeper Meaning," and basically talked about how we need to have there's a deeper meaning to the Word of God. And one of the points, especially since we're talking about love and relationships, imagine that the Bible is a love letter from God that He wrote to us for us to get into and to learn things that He wants us to know. If you write a love letter, sometimes there's ups and downs in the relationship that are discussed in the letter, and there's promises made and things like that. But sometimes we only allow the pastor to read the love letter and tell us what it says. But we have to get to a place where we're reading it and understanding what God wants to tell us. Because if you're in a relationship and someone writes you a love letter, you're not going to say, "Hey, Rail, read this for me." You're going to read it yourself. So how much more important should that relationship be versus the relationship that you have with somebody on earth?
That's good. Did you tie that in? Because we were talking about
Oh yeah, I
that?
did. I did
Yeah.
talk. Yeah, I did. So it was
That's
yeah.
beautiful.
God used me today. I thank God for it. It was a good message,
That's good.
in my
That's
opinion.
good.
He gave
I'm
it to
sure.
me.
I'm sure in
so,
other people's too. I'm sure.
Yeah,
Well, I appreciate that.
no doubt.
Before we get into the episode, I gotta. Should I do it? Yeah, I'm gonna do it. We gotta call out somebody, not somebody, something. We gotta call out one of these entities, the powers that be out here. Instagram.
Instagram.
We gotta talk
the
about it.
ops.
The ops.
What happened?
They about to make me rise.
Who in the spotlight?
You about to pull up?
It's about to be the last.
The last.
The last.
Let me,
We gonna see what's happening on the 11th.
Yeah, exactly. So at some point in time in this past week, somebody from Instagram decided that our platform needed to be blocked or temporarily shut down.
Okay.
Interns.
Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? We can't
Interns.
like
Intern.
the interns.
The intern.
Somebody hit the wrong button somewhere.
Week.
We can't like, we can't follow. I can't officially post anything. Only thing I can do, I can post to the story and other people can follow us, but we can't really do much. And I don't really understand why. I've reported it 3 times and nobody's hit me back. We're not buying followers. We're not spamming people. We don't have no bots on the payroll. Everybody here is a fully functioning human being.
Hello.
Not a robot.
You know what I'm saying? So I
Trey.
don't really understand it, but Instagram, I need you to fix that. And you said by the 11th, so I'm gonna be gracious and give you to the 11th, even though you're messing up the flow of our show. You know, we have things to put out, ideas, things we want to get to the people, and y'all just shutting us down for what? Is somebody reporting us? Yep. Somebody dry snitching, somebody dry hating.
It was me. It was me. I felt as though the episodes were a little bit too risque.
Oh, really?
A little bit too risque.
I know that's not true. Whoever it is out there beefing.
Don't be like that.
It's
Yeah,
another
whatever's going on.
podcast.
Hey,
Another
just
podcast.
pull up.
I just want to be clear. We
up.
will find you, and we will deal with you.
We have a payroll,
Take it.
Chris?
Hold on, wait. Yeah, that's a better question.
I was gonna wait, but I was like,
What payroll, bro?
Hey, that's
Hey, it's for horses.
Like I
Answer
said-
my question.
like I was saying. Instagram, we don't appreciate it. I don't want to pull up, but y'all don't want to smoke with the Last Supper podcast. I'm gonna say it. Free us, man.
I just want to say I'm not a part of the pull up.
Like I am not associated. I'm a guest.
Y'all know I'm lying. I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
we can
exactly.
fly. We
We can drive.
take a taxi, an
If I-
Uber, a Lyft.
if we Uber all the way to California,
Hey,
we
whatever.
ride out on
Hey, come outside.
Like Malcolm X said, by any
Come
means
outside.
necessary.
But by the time they hear this, hopefully it should be a dead issue. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't even have to.
Wouldn't
Get
that
another
be
shout
something?
Yeah.
They
'Cause-
fix it, and then we put this episode out talking
And
about
then
we're
they
gonna
block
pull
it.
up.
No, but I want them to hear it because I need
So
them
they
to
know
hear
for
it.
next
'Cause
time.
next time they think about hitting that button. Nah,
This ain't
this ain't the
it.
show.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. All right. Or the king, you know what I'm saying? Hey, the enemy forces is real out here.
That's
You think if we was out here talking about sports and being wild, what do you think we get shut down?
They're like, oh, they're talking about Christ. Cancellation. Cancellation. This Jesus. I'm telling you, that's how it was. Jesus.
Right. Now we see y'all moving, but we gonna keep doing our thing. So
Oh, yeah.
that's it. That's it on the housekeeping items. Back to the purpose at hand. We are in our second part. I know we said we were gonna do a 2-part series. We lied. We sorry. It wasn't an intentional lie.
A dishonest podcast.
You know, we try not to be.
Dishonest if you correct.
I just want to be a
You know, that's
part
how
and
kids
say
try to do.
I wasn't here when they said it was gonna be 2 parts. So technically, they lied.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll show her that I lied because I set it up as 2 parts.
Lying.
And then we got to looking at it and said, no, we need 3 days for this. So this is part 2 of 3 of our Month of Love relationship series, The Butterfly Effect. And we are titling it Breaking the Cocoon. Ooh, what does breaking the cocoon mean? It means we started off, we are in the Spread Your Wings. Breaking the Cocoon was the first part. So Spread Your Wings. Breaking the Cocoon was setting up the foundation of a potential exclusive situation or relationship, and now we're getting into that area where it's right before you're in a relationship, but now you have an intentional mindset. You're doing things to segment that person from the others and really honing in on who they are to determine, hey, is this something I'm going to invest major time in? And I think this is an area I kind of skipped over this in our original layout. I went from the beginning stages and then straight to the relationship. But it doesn't really work like that, at least now, not in today's time. There's, unfortunately, this elongated process where it's like, okay, I'm talking maybe to even other people, you talking to other people, and then it's this phase where it's like, okay, you've caught my attention enough to where I can determine whether this is something I want to move forward with.
When it's like, all right, stop talking to all of the people.
Yeah, exactly. Stop
right.
talking to other people. You cut them
Let
off.
them go.
Cut them off.
Cut the team
Tell your
off.
friends goodbye.
Yeah, yes, because this is us
Team
now.
out.
It's
That's the
you and me time now.
Let them
And that
go.
team, man, you know, some people don't want to cut the team, but that's what we want to talk about today. Spreading your wings. So we're going to start by kind of highlighting what we talked about for part 1, if you haven't heard it yet. We started by talking about dating from biblical times, where women were traded for land, cattle, all kinds of just random things that, you know, we don't obviously do nowadays.
Where marriage was more so a business transaction.
Yeah, a business transaction, way more transactional. Then in the 1800s, we got to courtship, where it became more of a family-oriented decision. Your mother, your father was part of your dating process. Your family name played a lot into the decision, your status. And then we get to the 90s, or in the 1900s, I'm sorry, and courtship ends around the 20s, and then you get to what we call dating, you know, the exclusive individual one-on-one interactions between people. You know, get to the 50s, people start talking about sex. 60s, people start having sex outside of marriage. People start experimenting.
Oh, so people didn't start having sex until the 70s?
That's crazy.
No,
I'm messing with
outside
you.
of
How did we
marriage.
populate the earth?
They've been doing it since caveman,
I'm
so
messing
we
with you,
know
brother.
that.
So easy a caveman can do it.
Exactly. But now it became easy to talk about in the 60s. So, yeah, they started talking about it. It became desexualized. And now, here we are, 90s. I mean, fast forward to the 90s, we see matchmaking sites, dating services. And now we're in 2020, and it's a mess. It's a whole
It's
mess.
just a solid mess.
A Sahara mess.
Why is it a mess?
A
though?
desert.
Because we made it that way.
Yeah.
So much so that we have to talk about it.
I want to
So-
complicate stuff so bad.
That was part one. So now let's get into part two. And let's start by first exploring how your spirit, because one thing we established in part one is that this is a process that isn't very biblically defined. It's a very loose, it's defined in the Bible, but very loosely. And it was another time, different customs. So to translate that to 2020 requires a lot of wisdom and a lot of, I don't know, just these types of conversations, I feel. So keeping that in mind, how has your spirit confirmed or denied potential relationship situations in the past for you? What has made you feel comfortable saying, this is a person I can maybe consider exclusively, or what made your spirit say, no, this isn't it, let me move on?
I'll answer that one. So I think for me, I think my discernment always plays a key, right? And so what I find is that, so last episode I talked about how it was very important that you know yourself, right? That you, as a woman, that you partner with a man who knows himself, knows where he's going, things like that. But for me, as far as filtering through, like, is it worth it? Do we move forward? I just listen to what he's saying, and then I hold him to his own word, right? So if I hear a man constantly saying that he's loves the Lord, but I never see him pray, right? Or I hear him always saying that he's mild-mannered, but then I see him mad and he's not mild-mannered. Or I hear him always saying he's patient or that he's a servant, but then when it's time to help, he never helps. You see what I'm saying? Like, these types of things, if you just listen to people and then hold them to their own word, that's kind of how that's always the easiest way for me to filter men out. Because I'm like always listening to what you say, and then I'm always waiting on if you actually did what you say, or if you who you said that you were.
That's fair.
So for me, I don't know. Yeah, just once I realized, oh, there's a lot of inconsistencies in who you say you are and what I'm actually saying.
So we line up, you know?
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of waiting and watching.
Yeah, I'm very.
Observing.
I play the long game.
Wildfire.
I got
Gotta play the
time.
long game in
You know what I mean?
2020.
Like,
I got time.
I do. I got time. I
That's
got
real.
time.
I mean, this is an
Opportunity.
important
Like,
thing.
and so I do. I don't play the long game as far as like, because I think the whole observation in a way that some churches frame it is a little creepy, right? Like,
What do you mean by that? How do they frame it?
I mean, like in a way of like, well, sit 3 rows behind this person and just watch what they do throughout service.
Yeah, that's a little stop.
That
You know
sounds
what I'm
like
saying?
that sounds
Things
like
like that are a bit
Netflix.
much. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
But I've heard men like tell my friends things like, oh, well, I watched you for a couple weeks before I even decided to say
I've
hello
heard that
to you,
too,
and I was
actually.
just making sure. Yeah, and it's like,
I've heard that too.
okay, that's a lot. Like,
That's kind of weird.
I think it's weird if there's no, if you're just literally like watching her.
That's
There's
what
no
they're saying,
communication. You
yes.
could like be friends and still observe. From a
That's the
distance.
way you should
But you
observe.
should be like 5 pews back, like looking through
like
shoulders. Like,
You don't even know what the sermon was about.
No.
She just watching the back of her head.
I just know she turned all the verses. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, she know the place in the Bible.
she actually opened her Bible app.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that
but-
can be creepy.
It is creepy.
That's
But
very
yeah, it's an
creepy.
observation thing for me. I got time. I observe everything. I see
Yeah.
everything. I remember everything, and I'm gonna see if you really are who you say you are.
I think churches push that to kind of protect themselves too, because it's like if you have your congregation rushing through that observation and getting to places they shouldn't be, that could really kill your whole congregation. So
Yeah.
I think they err on the side of caution of like, just watch, sit back and watch.
Just wait and see.
Don't
Wait and
touch.
see. Yeah.
Just watch. And then when you get confirmation, pray on it and then move. But I do agree that the observation period is important. And it's something that I feel like I've rushed through historically. And I kind of touched on this on episode 1, It's about trusting the signs that, trusting God's signs, not my preferences. And those two kind of get cross-wired a lot of times in my brain because I even have my preferences on what I like spiritually, but God has aligned people, I believe, for you that are going to help you in certain areas that may not look the way you want them to or come in the package you expect them to. So for me, it's sad. It's almost like, in some way, if I like it, that's almost a sign like, oh, maybe I should consider it. Because it's like my flesh, you know what I'm saying? The flesh and the spirit are so opposed to each other. And
Definitely.
I experienced that dynamic in myself so much, to the point where it's like you take the flesh and you start attaching good spiritual traits to it, you know, trying to justify it in a sense. So trusting that conviction and moving in that has been a struggle for me. So that's what I'm trying to get to in my personal relationship statuses of just that should be my confirmation. When my spirit is at rest, then that should be my confirmation to move forward. I want my spirit to be at rest, and then other things as well to fall in line. Or if my spirit isn't at rest and other things fall in line, I might give too much grace for it, you know. So it's really, can I trust you, or does my spirit trust you that you're who you say you are? Kind of like what you said, is who you're portraying, who you are when I'm not around.
Yeah.
And if I can trust that in you, then that gives me the confirmation to move forward. Now, whether I do that or not, weighs sometimes, because I'm human.
I guess for me, I would say that in the past, most of my relationships had nothing to do with God.
Yeah.
Like whatsoever. Like he wasn't even there. You know, like I was like, you go somewhere else, I'm gonna go ahead and do what I want to
I'm
do.
gonna handle this.
So like that's
I'll check in.
That's literally
I'll check in from
if I
time to
check,
time.
that's
All right,
just
we
the
need
truth.
you
You know
right
what I'm
now.
saying? Like it was just all about what Real wanted to do, how I wanted to live, and there was no God in it at all. And I'm just being 100% transparent. We'll rush through things that I'm not even supposed to be doing, I'm doing. Things I'm not supposed to be saying, I'm saying. Just rushing through. And when I finally began to start doing what I should do and make sure that I bring God into every situation, every relationship that I'm in, was in a situation, and I remember I began to feel too comfortable doing certain things that I shouldn't be doing. And I said, you know what, this isn't right. And I began to pray on it. And I remember, I'll never forget, I was driving home and I was praying. I said, Lord, if this ain't for me, remove it. You need to take it away. 30 minutes later, got a phone call. This isn't working out. Thank God. Because I was sitting there saying to myself, like, well, I need this to be done
Did you hear my
with.
prayer?
He really, I mean, me and you, we talked about this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
You're
I was
right.
like,
I do remember.
and
that.
and this is the wild part though. Us as humans, we pray for something, God will do it. And I was sitting there like, man,
Why you do that?
yeah, like dang, like it was like certain conveniences come along with
Yeah.
certain things, and so it's just like.
They really didn't want to.
Yeah, you really
Real
didn't have
like,
to move
I call her
it.
once.
Kind of still
But the
want to
thing
hear
is
Is
it.
that the enemy?
But at that point, I was like, you know what? God is so concerned about that aspect of my life that He didn't allow me to go further into something that I shouldn't even be a part of. And so I've definitely seen the Spirit move for me in that regard. So yeah, that was very impactful for me. And I think something that you said, you know, your wires get crossed with God. Sometimes I think our wires aren't crossed. It's just that we put ours on top of His.
That's what I mean.
You know, we allow
It's not
ours to
crossed.
supersede what He wants.
I'm just hard headed.
Yeah, naturally. We're all hard-headed, man.
That part.
I be knowing.
It's like we're wearing helmets sometimes.
I be knowing. I be
You'll
like,
be like,
You hear him
Nah,
crystal clear.
I work hard to justify other avenues that I want to go down.
and then also,
Not you work hard.
also in some of those times too, we have to think about how does this person make me act. Sometimes somebody's spirit, the way someone treats you, the way someone talks to you, it will make you act a
All
certain
out of
way.
character.
Totally out of
Sometimes their
character.
character will get on you, and the Bible even talks about that. You can't allow everybody in your presence. Everybody can't be in your space, especially in that space. If it's some type of relationship, especially a relationship where there's potential love involved, potential husband or wife involved, you can't allow everybody in your space because they
No.
can infect it.
And even further than that, you allow people into your space, and it alters your way of being for quite some time. When you are in that like caked up phase with somebody, and you like, you know that this person is
Really
just
cute
everything to you.
face.
You're not sleeping like you
Betty
should be.
Crocker.
Like, you
Smiling
know,
all
you
the
sacrifice
time.
sleep.
Let me say something else too. I remember Witt said earlier about, you know, he says he loves God, but he's never praying. He says that he's mild-mannered, but he's always angry. You know, you see things like that. But if you're dating someone that's spiritual like you, that's pursuing and chasing a relationship with God, when they get out of pocket, you know how to go to them. You know how to say, hey, this isn't you. This is, you know, you're not acting like yourself, and you know how to address them and hopefully pray for them and bring them back to the person that they really are. Because sometimes in different seasons, we get out of pocket.
Yeah.
We get out of line. We say things, do things, think things that we shouldn't, and they can help us.
But that's why you have to be able to know if that person is genuine in their walk or not. And
True.
I think that's one
Right.
of our questions. But I think that's so important because so many people, especially in the church scene, use the church arena to date, and they have no real intention on developing a relationship with
At
God.
all.
They just there to develop
Sound
a
good.
relationship
With you.
I met him in church.
with anybody. You feel
Right.
me? Whoever got the nicest hat this week.
Nice.
Not the church clown.
Whoever
Got the
got
best
the
outfit.
nicest.
You see
Yeah.
Mother Jefferson up there?
Nicest hat.
Mother
Nicest
Jefferson
hat.
with the church
The
crown.
shiniest.
Girl, bring your hat and them flowers, girl.
Right.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
man.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
So, how does intentionality differ in men and women? I know what it looks like in men. I am curious to hear the female perspective. How are you intentionally intentional?
Intentional.
I'm gonna jump in real quick because I have a very quick answer, and then I want the ladies to take over. I don't believe that there is a difference between men and women in intentionality. I think there's a difference between certain people and intentionality.
I think there could be a difference in how they show it. I think it's going to be a natural difference in how a man shows intentionality versus women.
Yeah,
based
I
off
think
of like
I think there definitely is. Yeah.
I'm still trying to
Okay.
answer that for myself in my mind. If I'm trying to be intentional, first of all, I'm assessing where I am. Because I can say I want to be a wife, but it's like, okay, where am I realistically? Like, how's my walk? Like, if this man came up to me tomorrow, am I going to try to take him down? Am I going to try to mind my business? Am I going to try to be that woman of God? And so I first would assess like where I am before I even allow myself to be in that space to be pursued.
Okay.
So I'm trying to guard.
What you said? You said take him down.
Yeah.
What is that? What does that mean?
Trying to put hands on people. I'm not trying to mind my business.
Oh, okay.
So-
Okay. Thank you.
Lust.
Yeah, thank you for that.
There you
Chris.
go.
Thank you.
So yeah, but just
Chris
trying
Brown
to
take
check.
you down. I thought it was clear.
I didn't.
yeah.
I'm like,
I
is
don't
this?
know.
It's okay. I can
I
keep.
didn't want to
We
assume.
can keep-
You don't want
I
to
was
put
wondering
the.
too.
Going,
You don't want
yeah.
to put the lust bug on somebody.
Yeah,
That's
you
not what
That's
we're
not what they
talking
talking
about.
You know,
I'm sorry, did you say lust bug?
The lust
the
bug.
lust
Yeah.
bug, not the lady
that
bug,
sounds
the lust bug.
disgusting.
That sounds yeah.
Sound dirty.
But yeah, so most of the time I'm checking myself to make sure that I'm where I'm supposed to be, like my intentions are good there. And then I'm making sure my relationship with God is straight. Oh, sorry. That's usually where I am. That's usually where I am for that.
Okay.
That makes sense.
How does intentionality look in men?
What?
Oh yeah, with it. Your turn.
How would I know
Because
how
wits
intentional?
and
No, no,
Like,
no,
it's
no.
right.
Erase that last question. You
man.
answered it for a woman.
I feel like Trey answered anything.
I'm not a woman though. He did ask.
You
me.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
asking
they-
how do women?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like-
Because I was interested in that, but then we can swing it to Trey if you want to.
Clearly.
She trying to throw the question.
Yeah, it said
I was trying to hand it
Yeah,
off.
hey,
Was that a lateral?
What y'all call it, an alley-oop? That's what I was trying
One
to
of
do.
them. That's one of the ways.
Listen.
Look at Whit learning.
I'm a fast learner.
Go ahead.
We're gonna
Whit.
start our own sports podcast after this.
Oh, sure.
Tomorrow.
This is a hard one for me to answer because
kinda tough.
I'm not on the offense.
You're not
When
on the
I'm not
offense?
I don't play on offense when it comes to dating.
Yeah,
so it's
Whit.
hard for me to answer this. You know what I'm saying? Like
So do you have to be on offense to be intentional?
no, if
That's a
no.
good
So if you're
question.
asking how I
Yeah,
respond,
it's
so I think for
intentional.
me it may be how do I respond to intentionality.
So you can't provoke intentionality. You can only respond to
I
it.
can provoke intentionality.
Okay,
So
that's
what
what
are
I'm
we
asking.
what do we mean by
How?
intentionality?
I'm trying to, yeah.
How you
How do
provoke
you-
intention?
where are we at in this
How,
in this
so
relationship?
we're in a relation. We're in the spot where it's okay. I want it to be exclusively you, and I want to be exclusively your option, right? I want to
Okay.
be mutual
So
on
we
that.
so we're talking,
Uh-huh.
but we're both talking to several other people, and we're deciding that I don't do
That
that.
may be the case, but that's not what you want. You want to talk to him. So, and you don't know where he is. How do you invoke that intentionality of, hey, this is where I'm at with it. Where you at with it?
I don't do that. I'm not trying to be funny, but I really do not initiate
I'm not saying you have
relationships
to.
like with men who aren't initiating the relationship with me because that's just like the number one flag that they either don't want it or they're not ready.
Solid.
So I really feel like I can't answer. If you ask how I respond to intentionality,
Okay, you can answer that.
I think I respond to intentionality even with openness or no
Or
thank
nah.
you. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Like, no thank you I've ever heard.
No,
No, it's like you.
I'd like to be in a relationship with you. No,
I'm
thank you.
good. I'm
No,
good.
thank you.
Nah, I'm good on that.
I'm actually straight.
And you'll every guy that I've ever talked to, like there's a clear difference in friend Whitney and like Whitney when Whitney likes you. Like there's a
yeah.
you can't
Can't cross
yeah,
those.
Can't
you,
mix 'em
you
up.
wouldn't mix them up.
Yeah.
You really wouldn't.
You
so,
know.
Indeed.
yeah. So now you might see the lines start to
Blur.
when I'm trying to when I'm like, because that's a hard question, right? Like, because it's like. Because that question is kind of speaking to like the whole like friend zone thing, right? Like,
So what you're saying is you can't submit a question to a man that would take you down that road, at least on the conversation of
I'm
like,
saying that the question that I'm thinking is, what are we? Is that the question?
That's what I'm getting.
I mean, you could be that direct and say, "What are we?" But I think there's other things you can ask that. If you don't want to be that direct, if you don't want to play
Right,
offense,
but it's that
premise of
question.
it.
Yeah.
You're saying, how do I initiate the "what are we" conversation?
Exactly.
I don't initiate that conversation. Is what I'm saying. I
Okay.
just don't. I feel so like I
Whitney
don't
is a
know.
queen.
But it's not that. But
approaching me.
it's not that. But I just
No, you are.
I don't chase. If I have to ask a man, what are we? This just goes back to my last question. And again, I know I don't speak for all women, so I'm grateful that we have other perspectives on here. But for me, if I have to ask you, what are we? That's the same thing as me shooting a shot. Like, if I'm asking you, what are we? That means that for some reason you're giving me mixed signals, or you don't know what we are yet. Like, help me understand the context in which.
Is that the same as shooting a shot though? Because I mean, you're already dating, you're already seeing
No,
each
so
other.
you remember? So
Yeah,
last
it's-
episode we talked about like why I wouldn't shoot a shot, and Chris used the example, well, maybe the man just isn't ready, and so I said, well, that alone, what do I do then if he's not ready and I shoot my shot anyway? What do? I already set myself up to go into a relationship that was doomed from the beginning.
Right.
I really think that I see so many of my friends get into relationships where they are way more invested than the man is, and so for me, that's more so my lens. I'm not doing things where I'm way more invested. Either we like.
I get that.
I
I
get
get that.
like-
I'm not trying to get you to physically do something to invest in the relationship when you're not unsure of where the man is.
But it wouldn't be physically. I think I'm saying, if
But-
there's clarity in the picture, why do I need to ask, what are we? If a man has said, like, this is what I want, this is the way that I see you, this is
Yeah.
what I'm interested in, why would I have to ask, what are
That
we?
would have to be said
I
from
would
the
have to ask,
beginning.
what are we, if he was talking to me and also 5 other women, right? And yet he was at my house once every, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is when I would be like, so what are we doing here? So what, but I'm saying that when I find myself in situations where I'm like, what are we doing here? That's typically my number one sign to be like, I'm out.
So, okay, what if a woman is in that situation where it's like month?
Then you need to
I've
ask.
been in there.
Okay, and that's what
You
I'm.
need to ask.
because-
Yeah, so, but I think I'm always going to err on the side of clarity and communication, right? So I think a woman should just say, hey, what are we doing here?
Yep.
Right? Like, do we know how we feel about each other? Or, because maybe, because it is possible that maybe if they are,
Just say it.
Just say it.
Just say it. Just say it.
For real.
there's nothing wrong with her clarifying if she needs that clarity, because a lot of men will send mixed signals in an effort to kind of keep you
And drag you
where they
along.
want. Yeah, to keep you dragging along. But I think that the first sign of noticing that I feel like I'm being dragged along, then you should probably directly ask them, hey, what are we doing here?
Okay.
Hey, where do you see this relationship going? Right? Like,
That'll clear it up real
what are
quick.
you here for? Right? Like, but I feel like you don't have to ask those
So
questions.
basically,
You can
if a
just say-
man gets you to the point where you feel like he has to, or you have to ask, then
You're
it's
out.
probably too late.
Yeah, so I believe that. So like how you said, when you get to the point where you have to, if you feel like you have to start playing mind games, then it's like that ain't it. If I get to a point where I'm like, what are we doing here? Does he like me? Does he not? Are we pursuing more? Are we not? I'm just gonna go ahead.
So, question for you. Question. Let's say.
But I just want to be crystal clear that I'm not speaking for. That's just me.
So
I'm
this
just-
is pre-relationship. You're dating.
okay.
Okay.
What is dating? What do we mean by we're dating?
You tell me. What's dating for you?
Going on dates.
It can't be dating for me, because if we dating for me, then I don't have to ask what dating for me is.
Dating
I
is
know
a
what's going
subjective
on.
term.
Yeah.
Define
If you
dating.
asking, are we just randomly
think
going
most
out to
people-
eat with no clause on it? You know, because
That's
men like to,
dating.
hey, you want to go out to eat?
Well, he did say pre-relationship, yeah,
Yeah.
dating.
Pre-relationship,
Yeah, just
going.
going
So
on
we're
dates.
going on dates.
Just
Going-
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, he's courting you, so to speak.
Okay.
Minus
It's not
the
courting,
parents.
though.
Minus the parents. Yeah.
Minus the family.
Yeah.
And maybe in your mind, you're ready for a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
In his mind, maybe he's considering getting into that relationship, and he's not sure because of whatever reason. Men have a million reasons, just like women have a million reasons.
Maybe you just seem too independent. Maybe he's like, there's no space for me.
You know
Wait,
what's so
let
crazy?
me finish.
Yeah, go ahead
Let me
and finish.
finish. Let me
Real.
finish.
We'll go come back
Let me
to
finish
that.
that hurt.
Help me
So,
out, girl. Help me out. Drowning over here.
They're trying to drill you with.
so
They're trying to drill you with.
and I'm just using random numbers.
Okay.
So let's say you're ready at month 5.
Of what?
Month 5 is a long time.
I'm like I said, I'm just throwing random
months is
numbers
a
out
long
there.
time.
Month 8.
Okay. Of dating. Okay.
Month 5 of dating, you're ready to be in a committed relationship.
Okay.
But he's not ready until month 6. But he doesn't say anything because he's going to tell you at month 6. So at month 5, are you just out because he hasn't said something to you about the commitment and about the relationship and where you guys are going?
No, because well, my question would be, did I not know that he wasn't gonna be ready until months? Like, what were the pretenses under which we started dating? I think what I'm trying to say is, because I feel like it sounds like I'm asking for like way more than I am, but I think what I'm saying is, if you just let me know what we're doing from jump, right? Like,
I'd be
we not
straight.
friends, right? Like, I
Yeah.
appreciate a man to be
No,
like,
I'm the same
don't call
way.
me sis.
Yeah.
You know
I'm
what
the
I
same
mean?
way.
Don't call me sis.
None
You
of
Buddy,
your
friend.
all of
family,
that
none
stuff,
of
you know what
that.
I'm saying? Like, so I'm not asking for like to get down on one knee and be like, I would like to date you for 6 months, and then I would like to
Marry you next and then
that's
have
ridiculous.
kids in a year.
But I don't think it's too much to ask to not have me guessing, right? Like, to just,
Yeah.
it's not hard to be like, listen, I don't like you as a friend, right? Like, hey, whoa,
There's
we
gotta
not.
be more, yeah.
Yeah, or to be like, oh, or we're just friends, right? Like, I'm just saying that I need clarity from the beginning. If I'm guessing all throughout, I can't even really answer these questions
That's
because
fair.
Yeah.
for me, I don't stick around because that's just so dangerous for women. And I've told y'all this before. It's dangerous, especially for me, because of the way that I love. Right? I can't love everybody that might like me with the same level of energy. I can't. Do
I have so many follow-ups, but I'm gonna
I know, right?
Yeah.
You could really
You
party here
waiting.
for a while.
offline.
I wanna
We will
see-
discuss further.
I want to
Yeah, but I just want to make sure like that I'm not saying that
No,
there
you're
should
not
be like
saying
these
too much.
unreachable.
Here's a contract here.
unreachable.
Month 3, we're gonna do
exactly when you're ready.
Month 6, and then I'm here.
You will be ready as of this
Dated
day.
9 exclusively.
Valentine's Day initial here, please.
Arrange
1 weekend
dating.
trip after 8 months, please. That's fine.
Oh my god.
That's how it sounds. But I just really like that's not. I'm just saying that if I'm guessing about it,
It's not
right? And
it.
this is how I feel for all women. If you are in a relationship with a man at any level and you are guessing about where y'all are at, you shouldn't be in that spot. You don't have to guess about anything else with men. If you watch men pursue anything, if you watch men talk
Your
about,
finger so
I hear y'all talk about basketball and y'all don't guess about a thing. Y'all like if I ask who's your favorite basketball player, neither one of y'all are gonna be like, oh, well I kind of like this person. I also like this person. You're gonna adamantly, it's this person.
I mean,
Right, you know what I mean?
I
Like-
would venture to say that watching a basketball game is a lot more simple than
It is a lot more
relationship.
simple, but what I'm saying is it's the intentionality of men. Men know what they want is what I'm saying. And so if you are in a position where you're like, does he want me? Does he not?
Yeah, it shouldn't be any confusion.
Probably
agree.
doesn't.
I
Shouldn't
think
be any
that's.
confusion.
I think that I don't know. I would say that may be an oversimplification. I would say the guessing part.
But
in,
see,
over
I think-
in long periods of time, I think like if you month 6 and y'all boyfriend girlfriend, and you trying to figure out if he like you, that's a big problem.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I'm pretty
your boyfriend like you?
personally.
Yeah,
No,
like
yeah,
y'all
no,
think y'all
no,
kind of
that's
took
a
some
real
steps.
thing.
That's a real thing.
That's a real. I think
heard
that,
that.
yeah,
That's
like
very
I'm
true.
personally saying that we make relationships too complicated, right? If you're in a gray zone, it's because you were trekking through the gray zone all
you
alone.
accepted
You know what I
too
mean? Like,
much
yeah,
that
you
you didn't
started
wanna
off.
accept.
Yeah, if it starts out as in we're pursuing a relationship, then we're pursuing a relationship. If it
Yeah.
starts out as we're friends or we're in the same, we work together or whatever the case may be, when it starts to progress, two people know when the energy
Yeah,
is
you just
different.
need to be
You know what I mean?
honest.
Like these
Work
are
together.
adults. Like
No fraternization.
yeah, you know, but like
Right.
people,
Call HR.
grown people know. And so when it
What
starts
is
to
this?
get that, now if you start doing that back and forth, like we kind of like each other, kind of don't, kind of like each other, kind of
don't
don't,
childish.
for
I'm not with that.
6-7 months.
No,
Yeah,
no.
y'all
Still-
both are
that's
childish.
what I'm-
at
6 or
that
7
point.
days and it's a wrap.
Yeah, so that's
Not
what I'm
with
saying.
that.
Is like that's where these questions come into play to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So Whitney, do you feel like there is no place for women to be intentional?
I don't feel like that at all.
So back to the original question, how do you see intentionality being played out on the part of a woman?
I want to say this very carefully, but I
Please
think
do.
that men's intentionality and women's intentionality picks up in two different spots.
100% agree.
And so I think y'all are asking me as a self-proclaimed very traditional woman where intentionality picks up in the beginning, and I'm going to keep saying
No.
it doesn't for me.
I didn't say
Intentionality
in
for
the
me.
beginning. Just
Intentionality for me picks up after you've been intentional. So we went through the Ruth and Boaz thing last time. So after I come home with bundles of weed and I'm like, oh, I don't have a question in my mind what this man
This
is.
person is after.
That's where it picks up for me. That's where my acts of intentionality come in.
so after y'all start dating, or are you referring just specifically to marriage?
No, so last
Like,
week we
what? So
talked-
practically, what does it look like you being intentional in a relationship with a young man?
I think
I feel like we're interrogating Whitney.
Yeah, I'm trying to swing it to Key. That's what I'm trying to swing it
Have
to
a
Key.
favor.
Yeah, Key, your turn. You and I see.
Let me help you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I'm saying,
You're next.
how to be intentional. But I agree with what you said, though. It shouldn't be. I think we do make it more complicated than it really needs to be. Like, you know when you're wanting to be in a serious relationship, and you know when you want to play games. And so, like, when you had a conversation up front, there shouldn't be any confusion. Like, I've been on both sides where it's like, I do have to ask because I'm really upfront too.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I've been upfront where it was like late in the game and I'm confused and I'm emotionally invested and it's like, what is this? And then it's just a confusion moment. It's like, oh, okay, I just wasted my time. But when you get that out the way ahead of time, it's like, okay, well, I know what this is going to be. Like, I know if you're intentional with me, like, I mean, I know some people don't like to ask those questions because it forces you to come out with the truth. But I don't think people should be afraid. Like, just say what you are on. I think that's the only thing that makes it confusing. Like, if your intentions are, like, for lack of a better word, trash, you don't want to necessarily say that up
Can't
front.
broadcast that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
gotta
can't. Like,
wrap
how do you
that-
say
wrap
that to
that
a
up.
person? I actually want to waste your time. Like, I'm not actually in a
Can I
place
get a little
to.
more?
Yeah,
Just
like
a little
I'm not in the position. I see myself eventually being serious with someone. I just don't know if that someone is you. How do you say that? And so I
Just
think
like that.
right, but that takes a mature person to like.
But you said, how do they say that? With inconsistency. And that is my whole
Yeah.
point. If you, once you get to the point where you're like, what are we?
It's
It's
a
because
no.
they've been so inconsistent that you are confused thoroughly.
Yeah, you shouldn't be
see what I'm saying?
confused.
And so
I can
once you're
amen that
that
point.
confused,
I can.
Yes
admit
or
that.
no?
I've been on both sides of the fence of causing the confusion and being confused.
Yeah.
So I can speak from being on the causing end. It was because it was for one, like Real said, God was not a part of any of these processes. So I didn't feel any type of way about leaving women in the gray area. And then it was me either trying to figure out, like literally trying to figure out if this particular woman is someone I want to get serious with or somebody else, or I was just being even more trash and I knew that it wasn't, and I was just being selfish, you know. And so when you start being intentional, then that's when you start being like, okay, what are we?
Put your card on
And,
the
and
table.
that's what I relate to the most with what both of y'all kind of said is I'm gonna let you know exactly where I'm at every point and when it changes, so you know, like, oh, hey,
No question.
I know I said.
This is
Like
what I'm
you
doing
exactly
right
what I
now.
said, but
I
life,
liked you last week.
life
That's
swerved
Last
on me.
week it was
So,
cool.
no, and I think that's the most respectful and honest thing you can do in this complicated process is just to not have anybody out here just like floating,
Yeah.
you know, and wasting their time.
And I think it also plays into just my personality in relationships. So I'm very, like, I didn't realize that people didn't ask their significant other what they needed, right? Like, I didn't realize that that it wasn't common in other people's relationships to say, do you need, like, what do you need right now? You know what I mean? And so for me, because open communication is so important, I can't even, I don't let things get to the point where I'm that, you know what I mean, confused. So I think just people don't communicate enough throughout the beginning. If you get caught in like and I think a lot of times we get caught in the emotion of it, right? Like when you have like are in that butterflies like stage and you
It
really
feels
like
good.
somebody,
It's
like,
cool.
all type of stuff is flying over your head.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I
That's what
mean?
we talked
All
about.
kind of flags missing.
All type of stuff. Yeah. And so, but I think because I know that maybe I'm overly cautious in that area, right? Like, because I asked, actually asked my friend this today. I asked her, do you feel like I would be able to do a good job of making my husband feel needed, right? So I was listening to a podcast by Heather and Cornelius Lindsay, and Cornelius was saying how he just liked to feel needed. And I hear men say that all the time, right?
It's an actual thing for us.
Right, but then my thought was, okay, but what if I don't need you tangibly, right? Like what if it feels wrong to fake it, right? But how do you express what your actual need is? So for me, there's a level of myself that I can't access on my own or without love, right? Like I'm a very keeper of the home like type of woman, but I'm not that one. You can't be that woman when you're single, right? And so I literally can't be all that is warm, all that is nurturing, all that is feminine, all that is mom, wife. Because of my upbringing, just because of the way that I am, I only give access that sometimes, right? And so I had to ask somebody, right, like, how do I express that as a need? So I think it's just about maybe knowing what your needs are. And I keep saying that, like, I don't know.
I wanna swing it to another angle that people might be scared to talk about, but I think we should because it's a realistic, it's a real problem or a real dynamic people have to figure out. When is the right time and way to break the physical barrier in these relationships?
Oh.
Yeah,
When you
this
say
one-
physical barrier, what do you mean?
I mean,
Break that down.
I mean appropriately so. Like, obviously, there's some things you shouldn't even do to your marriage.
Right.
What are those things?
Sex,
Right.
The sex.
All
shaking
sex?
the sheets,
All
all
sex?
sex.
All sex.
I mean, that's my personal
Yeah.
opinion. I speak for
Okay.
myself.
All sex.
All sex.
All sex.
That is
Okay.
also my
All
belief.
sex.
All
Okay.
sex.
Any
Not
sexual,
unisex.
all sex. Like,
I just want to make sure the people know where what
Right.
page you're on. So then
Yes.
when we say physical boundary, you mean like when
I mean,
can y'all start cuddling?
Like
That-
when you
that's
hold
even-
hands,
you shouldn't
when
be
you
touching.
like,
I
like what you talking about?
It can.
I don't know if you want to start the car if you ain't got no intention of driving.
Can't cuddle with Christian?
No.
We're not saying
I mean,
that.
I'm being,
I'm like,
I'm
I'm
being
out.
a little extra.
We're being facetious.
Out of what?
Oh,
Out of what? The faith?
I do think
You believe in Jesus?
Out of the face.
She said, I'm out.
So actually, I'm good.
like this is
I'm
hard.
gonna head out.
I've seen what I needed to see.
We're gonna be like this,
Yes.
watching movies.
So we can't even cuddle.
Hey,
You
boy.
like sitting on the couch like,
Oh, just humming.
Like, you don't
Thighs
want to cuddle
touching
at
my
all?
thigh. Scoot over.
You sinner.
No, but I do think there is a difference in the setting of the cuddling. If we cuddling in the bed,
Yeah.
horizontally, then that's one thing. You know what I'm saying?
that's
Versus
not
vertically
cuddling. That's
cuddling.
laid
I
up.
mean,
Like, you
you
know,
could be on the couch. You could be on the couch, literally, like sitting up.
Versus a
with her up
vertical
under you. And
cuddle.
that's way
Okay,
less
so let's talk
compromising.
about it in terms of spectrum. So Heather and Cornelius didn't even kiss until their wedding day.
And that's why,
Exactly.
because that's what I feel like
Won't
the church
be my
was trying to
story.
push. Exactly.
Like,
So
you
that's
have
why
to
I'm
be
asking
calm.
y'all.
Exactly. Let me set it up.
Won't
Let me
be
set it
my
up.
story.
Let me set it
Yeah,
up.
you gotta know yourself.
The church, I feel like, will push that for the same reason I said earlier this episode, for damage control. Do not touch her.
Children's
until
church only can get so big.
until you put the ring on, because then you go mess up if you do. Like, that's like a safe, better safe than sorry policy, but it's not realistic. I know people who didn't kiss until, like you said, till they were married, or at least till they were in a very, very committed, like almost married relationship.
That's deep.
That's deep and beautiful. And one day, maybe, I doubt it though. Not for me, because that's just not the path I don't see myself taking. And I think that's
sounds
the path
cool.
I
That
don't.
is not the road the Lord has passed.
Sounds
For me.
For that kid.
I'm not speaking for y'all. If you can, call me and teach me how. But I feel the majority of the people who would listen to this, that's not a realistic path. So, since the physical barrier is going to be broken, how do you break it? When do you break it? What's appropriate? What keeps you within the healthy spectrum of, okay, this is appropriate, but we're not going too far.
Hey, can I speak to that just real quick?
Please do.
I think a lot of times church. I've seen those. I've heard stories about them. People who they don't kiss until they get to the altar. They not even really hugging until they get to their wedding day.
Real pure.
And it's beautiful. And like you get to the finish line,
Right.
and you're at the wedding, and all you see is like the final piece. Wow, they didn't kiss until the altar. What I feel like people don't do a good job of is letting them know, hey, we were 6 months, we were a year into this no kissing until marriage thing, and one of us started struggling with XYZ, or because we didn't kiss, I didn't feel wanted by my girlfriend or boyfriend all the time. And so that caused other emotional damage in my relationship. Or, because he wasn't getting the physical affection he needed, he started wandering off just a little bit. But I think a lot of times we give people in the church, we give people this
Picture perfect.
final
kinda
product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the final product is great. The end goal is great, but I think you get the testimony in the test. And so if you're not telling people this is how we were struggling, if you're not telling people
That's
this is
good,
what
Trey.
we went through, then that final product is not a goal for people. It becomes an idol. It becomes a pedestal, and people place you on a platform you were never truly on. And so I'm not going to tell people not to do it, or that you got to kiss, or you got to do X, Y, Z. But what I will tell people is, if that's your story, or whatever your story is, be transparent, because like people can really get victory and can really get help by you sharing your struggle and say, hey, in spite of these struggles, we still got here. You know what I'm saying? That's what I think we got to do a better job of. But like the church will push a whole, this is sex God's way, or push a whole, we didn't kiss until we got married. And I'm like, that's great, but here's a reality. That's not realistic for a lot of people. And we try to stamp, this is how God tells you to date, when that is not true. You honor God with your body, but like that is quite literally having sex and not fornicating outside of marriage. That does not mean that does not mean you can't kiss, you can't hug, you can't hold hands. Now, if there's also wisdom. If that's what you got to do to stay pure, do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
That's important.
But that's not how we frame it. We
Right.
frame it as this is how God
This is
wants us
what-
to
this is
date.
what you
This
supposed
is
to
the
do.
holy thing. This is a pure thing. And I'm like, that's so dangerous because we are now being legalistic in the way we approach dating.
Yeah.
And that's very dangerous. So.
And it's dangerous for psychological reasons, right? Because you think that if you indoctrinate somebody to quite literally fear sex for the entirety of their life, when you get married, and I've heard a lot of women struggle with this, but
Sex
you
is
don't
good.
just flip the switch, right? Women don't just get married.
It is.
Well, no, but seriously,
Seriously,
because
it
women
is.
don't just I think men need to hear this, like especially when you are beating it into your daughters and your nieces and whatever that they need to be incredibly pure, just this huge purity doctrine, but it's psychologically damaging for a woman, right? Because then she goes to get married, her body and her brain do not just automatically say, "Oh, I'm married now, this is
Right.
fine," right? Then she's closed up, right? She wants to be intimate with her husband and she can't, right? Because she doesn't know how to access that portion of herself yet. She's not comfortable with her body enough yet. Kev on stage and his wife talk about all the time how they went through years worth of just sexual therapy just because she couldn't let him in the way that she wanted to because she had just been taught
that.
over and over again that sex was bad, that it was a damaging thing, and trauma is stored in the body. So even if in her head she was like, wait till it, and like it's going down, like that's not
Get there
really
and
what
be-
was going to happen on her
Yeah.
wedding. Like her
Froze
body, whoa, why is
What
it
is
touching
this?
here?
Yeah.
What's happening here? So
Yeah.
that's very damaging too in the way
Yeah.
that churches frame this purity like doctrine because
It's all about the approach.
and it's you
Yeah.
really have to even
Definitely
stretch
all
to
about
find
the
to get it to be supported in the Bible if you want to be for real.
Whoa,
You know what I
whoa,
mean?
whoa,
Like
wait. Get what this
a lot of what churches are saying. You don't have to stretch to get sex is made for the confines of marriage that's in the Bible. But everything else as far as you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't kiss before you're married and you shouldn't
Oh, kissing before
just
marriage.
all the other like
other
you said, dating
physical
doctrine
aspects
that's
of a
not
relationship.
there.
Oh yeah, dating.
All of
is
the
in
other
Bible.
dating rules that are not there.
That's pushed
Yeah.
by man, not by God.
Just wanted to be sure you weren't trying to say sex outside of marriage. But, whoa.
No, that's not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a different
yeah.
stretch. Then I think it's good, like you said too, because like when you're realistic, you help to set somebody up for reality. Because I
Yeah.
feel like it's a lot of
Yeah.
people that hear about cookie cutter marriage and everybody wants to rush to marriage, but if you don't hear like the other side of it, it's like that stuff is actually hard. You'll have this kind of feigned idea about what that's going to be, and then also I feel like when you kind of have to know yourself. You have to. I feel like to the question you posed,
Right.
you have to
So,
know
yeah.
your own boundaries. Like, you
Yeah.
know what is a quick get you there, a quick move, a quick environment. It could be whatever. You know your triggers. And so, like, when you have to do that due diligence, even if you have to set up your own boundaries and then let your friends or whoever else in on, like, hey, I'm trying to do a little bit better this time. I'm trying to be
Yeah.
right. And invite your accountability to be like, hey, y'all feel free to check in on me. We don't want to do it, but if you're really trying to be about that life you say you are,
Yeah.
and try to respect God in that way, you really do have to like be on defense with yourself. So I think it's just knowing your boundaries and sticking to
completely-
them.
Maybe
I
we
can-
should tell people. I'm not gonna cut you off. I just
Oh,
want
you
to.
good.
But maybe we should explain what about sex is made to be in the confines of marriage, because people who are
Sex.
listening to this that just think that's just Christian rules, that's just in the Christian rule book. They don't understand what it is about
Or why.
sex. Why? So maybe
The why is important.
let's explain that as we talk, and maybe from our own personal experience, like these
Oh,
are
you wanna go there.
negative repercussions.
You
I
wanna
mean,
go there.
if you're gonna
Yeah.
give people the rule,
Oh, I'm ready.
then
I'm
I
just trying
feel
to
like
see.
you should.
How
give
much
them
time
the
we
reason.
got, Kristen? What's our time?
Hop in there, real. Then we're gonna answer Witt's question.
Oh man, I mean, well, sex is completely wrong outside of marriage. I mean, God says so. There's no fornication allowed based on God's word. So if there's no fornication, then we don't need to be doing anything.
Yeah.
I don't need to know what you feel like. I don't need to know what you look like. I don't need to know
Yeah.
what you taste like. I don't need to know any of that unless we're married. And if we're doing things like that outside of marriage, then we're living wrong. We're living foul.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where once sex steps into the picture, you become so connected to somebody, you
Yeah.
become addicted to people,
Yeah.
and when you allow that addiction to come into your life,
Man.
it's like you're wanting something that you were never supposed to have, and it's negatively affecting you. It's
Yeah.
negatively pulling on you. You're starting to do things, think things, and believe things that you never were intended to. Even sometimes even about yourself. And so, like, we have to. Me personally, I have to stay away from that because I know the dangers of getting involved sexually in a relationship is definitely not good. It's not
And
beneficial.
that's all I'm saying is that we need to make sure that we frame sex up as a dangerous thing and not a wrong thing.
Yeah.
When you frame it up as a wrong thing, that psychologically
Yeah, that's different.
throws people off.
I would never-
When you frame it up as a dangerous thing, and that's why I'm saying explain to people like, yeah, it will feel good. It will seem like it brings y'all closer, right? Because it does. It quite literally attaches everything in their spirit right onto yours.
So
Right? But you
tight.
have to explain to people that it's not that it's wrong. It's dangerous. It's actually so powerful and so magnetic and so impactful and so game changing
Pleasuring,
for a
yeah.
relationship. You know what I mean? Like it's truly made to keep a husband and wife on like together. The Bible calls it a line of defense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to give people both sides. So that's all I'm saying is to frame it as a thing that's dangerous when misused and not
Put
a
some
thing
weight
that's
on it.
wrong.
And that's with anything for the most part.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all I'm saying.
that's-
Anything used
100%.
outside of the context of what it was
What it's
originally made
originally
for
for.
by God,
Yeah.
it'll be turned into a weapon versus something that can benefit you.
So to speak to that, to the why, as, and we don't even have to go as specific as sex. You could just talk about why getting physical prematurely before, for the right time, could be detrimental to a relationship, to you or the relationship. For one, especially if you're having sex, the more sex you have, the more connections you start and stop, makes it that much harder to maintain a relationship with the one you're supposed to. It's an actual chemical. I forgot the name of it, but it's a chemical your body creates when you're in love with somebody in a relationship.
Dopamine.
Not dopamine. That's I know what that is, but it's another one. I'm gonna look it up. Something. I'll look it up. I got a computer here. But when your body actually secretes this this chemical, and it builds up between you two. And when you stop having sex with somebody, when you cut somebody off, and then you start it, your body it's physically harder to make that chemical again. So that's why you start having more sex, less emotion attached to it, and it's just you go down the line, and now you're just out here casually having sex with no emotional attachment to it, because quite literally the science of your body, you've numbed it to where it can't even create that love chemical that you feel for somebody.
And then you're losing the beauty of it.
Yeah, now it's just like
Just an
business
act.
as usual. You know?
Doesn't it?
I want to say this too. When you start having premarital sex, especially if you're having, not even if you're having a lot of it, but you introduce that into your relationship or you're becoming too physical, expectations begin to change. Your relationship isn't solely based on, I want to get to know this person, I want to grow with them and see if we can grow and to become one flesh, meaning husband and wife. Your relationship is now about sex. Your relationship is now about physical intimacy versus spiritual intimacy versus praying for one another, being there for one another. Now it's solely, well, it can grow into being solely based on sex. And that's going to be a relationship that fails every time.
Yeah, I think another thing that kind of just helps me understand, what's it called?
I think it's called oxytocin. I just saw that too.
Okay. I think another thing that kind of helps me understand like why sex is wrong outside of like marriage is because it's also something that is supposed to enhance what is already there in a marriage. I think
Strengthen, not even enhance. Like
enhance, strengthen, all of that. I think God is so. No, I know He's so intentional about the way He designs everything. That when you go outside of the design of what something is supposed to be used for or how it's supposed to be used, that's where you see negative things start to happen. When you're drinking to get drunk, you get addicted. You know what I'm saying? When you take things of the earth and you start cooking it on the stove and stuff like that, you get drugs. I mean, like, so when you start to, even like when you take music, something that's been around since the beginning of time, and you start to talk about this and that, then you see cultures that literally go directly against what God calls us to be. So I think when you step outside the confines of creation and how things are supposed to be used, that's when you start to reap those negative consequences, the addiction, even the emotional. I've seen people literally become addicted to sex. I knew a guy in college, he was like, I'm at a point to where like I'm having sex and I don't enjoy it anymore, but I can't stop. And I was like, bro, I don't ever want to get to a point to where like, and not just sex, but just anything. I don't want to get to that point to where like something that God has created for me to enjoy, I can't enjoy because I've abused it so much.
It's called perverting. That's all we do with all of God's creation. That's the number one job of the enemy is take everything that God creates, which is good, put it in our hands, and let us just
Pervert.
go
Mess it
left
up.
with it all the way. We're gonna pervert it all.
As far left as we can go.
Yeah, but I think that's important. We got to set realistic expectations. So, to kind of put a bow on that and answer it, when is the right time and way to break the physical barrier? I think, for one, you have to be. For one, let's break it in a godly way. I'm not gonna tell you not to kiss. I'm not because that's just, we're grown. If you want to kiss. But like everybody said, know your limits. If kissing leads to touching and touching leads to a bunch of other stuff with you, maybe control even where you kiss.
But then maybe you say physical intimacy doesn't need to be established until y'all discuss physical strongholds.
Or that
right?
too.
So
Absolutely.
once you can tell somebody, listen, everything between here to here, don't even come even.
Hey,
Don't
leave
even
that
come
alone.
over here.
'Cause that's
Leave it alone.
the area.
Don't even come over here.
And and the crazy part is with most men, it's like anything from the top of our head to the soles. of our
Don't
feet.
touch me.
Like, hey, just leave me alone.
Across the room.
Don't even look
And
at
don't
me.
turn the ceiling fan on because a gust of wind will affect me.
Y'all be cutting them eyes. I'll be like,
That's,
you looking at me?
but I mean,
You looking at me
you're-
like that?
That's real.
Don't
So
look
you're-
at me like that.
to that point, with that's very real. If you don't know your own boundaries,
How can you expect someone to respect you?
how can you expect them to respect it? And how can you expect to have any success in
Yeah.
like your purity? But I will say, speaking from personal experience, we have to do a good job of not letting our boundaries turn into walls.
Come on, speak on it.
Like you don't.
Amen,
You know,
preacher.
Somebody felt that one, huh? But you don't want it to be like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do this because I'm scared of whatever, and then it turns out you've sacrificed intimacy with somebody in the name of not wanting to fall or not wanting to sin or wanting to stay pure. So I think you got to be realistic, but also like don't set boundaries out of fear. You know what I'm saying? Don't set those boundaries because you're fearful. Set those boundaries because, hey, I want to be able to enjoy our time. I want to be able to enjoy dating you, but also I want to bring glory to God. And that's really what boundaries should do. That should be the goal. I'm setting this boundary so I can glorify God through this relationship.
And,
Okay.
and it's good to know that physical chemistry is a good thing to have. It's a good
It's
thing if
necessary.
you are
Yeah.
with the person that you're dating and
Kinda
you
is
want to
necessary.
go.
Let's not
like,
be fake.
let's
Like,
yeah,
it doesn't
like
matter.
let's not act like you want to.
Nobody
Be
wants
with
to
somebody
wake
that's
up
gonna make it
hard to
every
go
morning
for
to
the rest
somebody
of
else.
I don't like
husband.
the way you hug me.
I have no desire whatsoever.
One more question, and then Rail's gonna end us on a treat,
Ooh.
and then we're gonna wrap up this, and it's kind of frustrating because I have so many questions and so many things I want to talk about. We do have another episode, but we can make this like 2 hours if we wanted to, 2.5 hours.
And just split
No, we
it.
can't. We can't do it. We can't do. We can come back to it. Love ain't going nowhere.
Love
Nope.
gonna
No
be here.
way.
It's not.
I will tell y'all.
There was a song that said "Love don't live here no more," so I don't
Listen,
know.
I believe she said, "How did you get here?"
That's what
Nobody's
Deborah Cox
supposed to be
said.
here.
Get here.
Shock out
Throw
the
the
bus.
bus.
Nobody
I would give that to Texas for that remix. I'll give that to
Caught the bus.
Okay.
I couldn't help
So
it.
let's wrap it up.
Okay.
Let's wrap it up.
Was it the great-
Everybody weigh in. Not everybody. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But let's weigh in on this as a wrap up question. And I like this as a good question because it leads very well into the third part of this series, which is the relationship aspect. When you're committed to somebody, when is the right time, if any, to discuss past relationships? And I'm gonna pop it off. For me, if you make me feel like I need to ask about past relationships at any point in time, it's the right time to ask about past relationships.
You know what? I'm gonna ask you right now.
You know what I'm saying?
Today.
My
Alright.
problem is I need to learn. I need to pick my spots. I need to pick my times and places because I'm the type. I'm like,
Or you
what
be at the
doing?
grocery store.
Like,
What are you
not
doing?
after
Doesn't
best
matter.
date
I need to
ever.
ask you something. What are you
Oh. Like, I just gotta talk to you about
your
something.
That's wild.
No, because if
At
they-
lunch.
and that's something I'm working out within me. But I've experienced, at least in my personal experience, sometimes this particular subject or even subjects that may be related, I ask a question and it's like, I'm not ready to talk about that now, or that's just really hard to talk about. I don't know. Anything but an answer, I feel like, is a red flag. And it's like,
It is.
so it's not like I'm coming out the gate like I need to know your past sexual relationships and history or anything like that. But if you tell me your past relationship was 3 months ago, it might be a little more on the forefront of my mind, like, oh, there could be some.
That's fresh.
That's
That's
very
a recent
fresh.
one.
That's fresh.
There's some carryover. There's probably gonna be some carryover.
Some
So
leftovers.
I'm gonna be a little more attentive. If it's a year ago, you know, it's not as prevalent on my mind. But like I said, I can kind of sense when it's like I'm dealing with trauma that I didn't cause, you know, or perspectives that I didn't create. So whenever those start to affect how we interact, how we are moving forward, then yeah, I think it's time for a conversation. And I know that that's a sensitive subject. I know that there is a too early spot for that type of conversation, but there's also a too late spot for that conversation.
Way too late.
Way too late. So, how do y'all go about asking the X question?
All right, we can let it go around.
Yeah, let's. King, you want to start?
This is like asking about your past with your
Yeah.
exes. I'm thinking initially, right from jump.
Right from jump at the gate.
I ain't gonna lie. I'm probably gonna, cause that's gonna be a part of my like getting to know you. I probably might get into the like when was your last relationship? Maybe in our first couple of encounters. I'm not gonna let it slip too far out. And I would be like you if somebody told me, if I'm asking you something, because for me, I'm transparent and honest about something if I feel like I need to be. Like, I don't hide anything. I have my own boundaries. I'm not going to go and air everything out like right away.
Exactly.
Of course, but if I'm asking you something, especially if I'm being honest about whatever it is that you're asking of me and then I get a block, I wanted to know where that block comes from. And if that's something that you can't disclose to me, then I'm like, that's something you got to work out. Do I want to deal with you working that out? Because if it's a simple question like when was your last relationship and you feel like I'm not comfortable talking about that, that's an easy question.
Yeah.
So if you can't give me that,
Yeah.
all right, I might have to head out a little bit. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's you, but that's just not for me.
Right.
So yeah, but I'm probably gonna get it out the way a little bit sooner than later.
Okay.
Yeah,
Trey?
and pass it to you. now.
Same thing.
You got the gate with it too.
Maybe not like, can I have your number? Tell me about your last man.
Right, right.
I mean, yeah, but I think that just plays to a part of my intentionality.
Yeah.
I try to be very intentional as much as I can with any woman I'm pursuing, just because like you don't want to get into a situation where it was like you're finding out something and you could have definitely taken the steps to get to know that earlier on. So you know, I just and truly, there's not much in a past relationship that I'll just like hold against you, because as long as you're somebody that's that can say you learn from it. And it's like, you know, we all make mistakes, but yeah, I'm trying to figure it out pretty early on because I want to be able to know, okay, what am I getting into? Why are you? Maybe there's something that happened in your last relationship that affects the way you act today, that affects the way you respond, or maybe there's something that another guy did in your last relationship that you did not like that I need to be aware of. So I think you can learn a lot just by simply asking questions. So I don't think there's really anything wrong with, you know, y'all hanging out and getting to know each other. Hey, you know, what was your last relationship like? Blah blah blah, that type of situation.
Does it? I want to ask Key and Wit something real quick. Does it bother y'all if y'all meet a man who y'all figure shouldn't be single but is, and like maybe hasn't had a relationship? Like, does that give you a reason to pause? Like that, why are you single question? Like, I kind of hate that question. Like, why are you single?
No, I get it all the time.
I get it. I guess
Everybody
y'all
gets
can get it. Yeah, I'm sure you do.
What you think?
Go ahead.
I feel like
I want to know.
now,
Yeah.
okay. I would there in the back of my mind, knowing myself, there would be a question of what's wrong with you.
Yeah, exactly. That's
It's going to be there if you like. I mean, but knowing I guess like the world that we live in and dating, here I am. You might be thinking the same thing about me.
Facts.
Like you look like a winning ticket.
I
Like why are you
I think
single?
for dudes it may be a little different.
Maybe, but I'm like, I don't put it past them that this is something that they might have thought about too. But I'm like, I won't fault you for it. But in the back of my mind, I might be like, you might be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm drunk. I might have a list of you won't know,
Everybody
but I have
passing
like a
up.
list. I'm like, yeah, I'm
Everybody in the
like,
past to this point.
you mean no
Okay.
kids? Okay, all right. It's
Okay.
curious, yeah.
Traditional wit.
Don't do
That
her.
was
Wait, I was talking to one guy, and he said I was domestic. Domestic.
You are fairly domestic, and that's not a bad thing. That's
I know
actually,
it's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
but that was the first time that I had heard that.
Oh, really?
That I heard that.
I could have
Yeah.
told you
I've
that.
heard it. Yeah, like I've heard it a couple
Christopher.
times.
What?
I was gonna say, get him, Trey.
I don't know if I'm trying to figure out if that's an insult.
Bro, I know it. It's not an insult.
Nah, it's
I don't
it's
feel like it's an
traditional.
insult only because I take pride in it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like yeah.
you don't.
It's
Whitney,
foreign.
Whitney, you don't have to defend him.
Bro, you can weigh in on that last question if you want to.
I don't think
man.
Whitney answered it actually.
What was the last question?
When is
so
the
sorry.
Past relationships.
last relationship? When you
Oh,
break
let
up?
me know off the
Yeah,
rip.
that's right.
I need to know right off the rip.
That makes sense.
Only because I'm big on. I mean, it's like what I keep saying. I'm huge on authenticity, right? Like, just let me know what I'm dealing with right from the beginning.
Real.
That's all I ask. I ask to just let me know
That's
what
the
it
hardest
is
thing.
from the beginning.
Why is that? It's so simple, but it's the hardest.
That's
thing
what
to
I keep
find.
saying.
You
It's
gotta
so
be
simple, but
honest.
it
You
requires
have
a
to be
man.
Because
honest.
I think
'Cause y'all
people
be
aren't
lying.
able to do it
Don't be
because they
lying.
feel as though someone
Why
will
you
judge them
always
initially without really getting to know
lying?
who they really are.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. People are afraid. Like,
Oh
well, you
my
want to
God.
Sorry.
Yeah, ignorant.
Yeah.
People feel like, you know, hey, they're gonna judge me if they know my
Just the rest of
past.
the words.
If they know my history, they'll judge me. They'll look at me funny. They'll do this. They'll do that. So I think that's the reason why people don't want to talk about it, depending on who that person is,
Yeah.
depending on the relationship
what-
they've had.
Now, I will say one thing, and what I found is that a lot of people who are still in the space of being afraid to be judged are still judging themselves for things, and that's dangerous to enter into a relationship.
very good.
Everybody is doing that to some degree, but somebody that's still harshly judging themselves for things that they've done in the past,
That's real.
it's very, very difficult to even be in a healthy relationship with that person.
Now I will say, I don't think you need to divulge every single.
No,
thing up
there's
front.
definitely.
I think you definitely do it within wisdom and in increments or split it up however you want to do it. But I will say, there will be maybe not. I won't just throw like a red flag, but there will be some antennas going up if like maybe I ask, hey, how'd your last relationship end? And it's like super defensive. I'll just be like,
Yeah, because if you give things space, they'll come up on their own, right? Like
Yep.
if you
Yeah.
okay, like for example, we riding in a car together, right? And I reach over to touch your radio, and you don't touch my radio, right? As long as I say, why don't you like people to touch your radio? Then we can have a conversation, and I find out right then and there what your history is behind. Well, I had this one girlfriend. Every time she wrote me, she wanted to
A
listen to country
domesticated
music.
mind.
that's the domesticated mindset.
But I mean, honestly, that's why I say I typically don't get blindsided because I ask questions. Hey,
No.
you seem very upset when I text you back one word instead of sending a full sentence, right? Like,
Why'd you do
It's
that?
disrespectful.
well,
Yeah.
and
Right,
so
with that.
but then once I know that, then I know, right? Like,
You have
oh,
to
he
proceed
sees this
moving forward.
disrespectful,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if I say, why, man? Because I was with this one girl, and every time we were talking, I felt like I was pulling teeth trying to get
Yeah.
conversation out of her. So it
Yeah.
makes me feel the same way, right? Like,
Dismissive,
yeah. But then as I'm hearing your answers, I should be filtering through. Is like you said earlier,
You
is
wanna
that
deal
something
with
I can
this.
deal with? Is that something I can't? Is
Very
that something I can deal with? Is
Yeah.
that, but people are in that love stage don't like to ask those questions because you don't want to find out anything.
don't wanna offend them.
Like if he say don't touch my radio, in that stage you're like, oh, he tripping, but you're not gonna say why. Not me. I'm
Yeah.
upset. Why?
That's real.
That's
You know,
I'm
and not in a
upset.
disrespectful way, but because I
I'm
want to know. I
upset.
truly want to know you, right? Like
Yeah.
why
How
would I
should we get to
commit
know
to my
somebody?
whole life with? I think people don't take marriage just for what it is. My whole life, and you think I'm not gonna ask questions?
I need to
I
know.
gotta get away.
We need to know the itty bitty.
Yeah,
We in this
and
together.
crazy
Yeah,
details.
all of that, like, oh, I don't want her to know me. Like, I don't want her to
Brian
know.
McKnight?
Yeah, like, I don't want her to know this part of me. She gonna see the worst part.
That's
of
Joe.
you.
That's
No,
right.
Is
that's
that
not
Joe?
Brian.
Same
That's
guy.
Joe.
Same guy.
No.
Same guy.
No.
I'm kidding. I messed it all up.
No.
I messed it
I was
all
gonna
up.
let you make
Definitely
it.
not the same guy.
I was gonna try to let you make it
Okay.
just a little bit.
So
Try.
real. Ooh, I have more questions.
Too.
Questions.
This is really long, y'all.
This was a really long
Y'all love love though, so there's a lot to talk
I
about.
hope y'all still
Well,
listening.
I'll answer that question real
Probably
quick.
sleep.
I agree with
Woke
what
up
they
on a
said.
Yeah,
Yeah, jump into it real
All right.
quick. I need to know.
we appreciate that. Real, wrap us up with a
Yeah, I'm
little
a
tasty treat.
I'm gonna give y'all a little poem. It's entitled "Who Is She to Me." I'm going to read it because the Lord is the only thing I want to know by heart. So I'm going to be looking down to read it. And see if y'all pick it out.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
You know?
see,
Nah,
that's
I
smooth
heard
jazz.
it. I just thought it was like not. You
Wow.
could have done better.
Sorry, Trey. Sorry.
Don't be
All right.
sorry.
All right. Be better?
Be better.
All right, I got you, brother. All right, let's go. Who is she to me? She is a force to be reckoned with, a genuine individual that you can see heaven in. She is the probable possibility of happiness and peace. She is the infinite focus of the words that I speak. She is a ray of sunshine in the darkest of evenings. The very reason true love is something I believe in. A constant reminder of why God gave Eve to Adam. The only person I can miss when I'm looking right at him. She's the definition of perfection, mystery, and elegance. She's heaven sent, better than all the rest of them, and ever since we met, all other women are irrelevant. She's sacred and forbidden like an ancient artifact. She's a thief the way she stole my heart, but I don't want it back. She's precious like a jewel, but soft with the most delicate skin, and a nightmare is only a dream that she isn't in. She's flawless and she's perfectly proportioned. She's gorgeous. If ugly was ever in her, she had an abortion. I mean, she's beautiful. Even when she doesn't try to look nice, she makes me look twice. Her face resembles what Christmas morning looks like. She's intelligent, she's smart and so witty. She's got the best sense of humor, she can be so silly. At the same time, she's dependable, loyal, and reliable. She's powerful. Even if she's not in the room, her presence is undeniable. She's so embracing, affectionate, and passionate. She's the one I have to get. Her smile is so immaculate. She's amazing and definitely worth chasing. And I'm patient, so if she runs like Usain Bolt, I'll walk just like Jason. In other words, she's worth waiting for. And every day she becomes more special than the day before. She's priceless. I couldn't find her in an outlet. She's anticipated like Jordan's that's not out yet. She's so important, thoughts of her are always in my head. I can probably come within 10 concerning the number of hairs on her head. She gets all of my attention, it's like she's on the stage. She's so innocent and young at heart, it's like she doesn't age. She's adored, cherished, loved, and appreciated. She's an Indian giver. Everything I give her gets reciprocated. She's forgiving. She never ever holds a grudge. She's understanding. I never feel like I'm being judged. She's a motivator. She's always there to lift me up. I feel like a kid again the way she's there to pick me up. And she doesn't lie to me like other people do. She's so blatantly honest that it's unbelievable. She's so subtle when she's calm in her demeanor. She's looking for me too. Please let me know if you have seen her.
Have you seen her?
He was waiting for it, huh?
Tell me have you seen her?
Chill.
Wow, bro. That was beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
That's great.
Back in it again.
Ladies, he's
With the
single.
white vans.
He's single.
Yes, he's living.
Single.
And I'm saying,
Yeah, like, there's so many ways. There's so many ways.
And I got my girl. Keep your head up. What? Keep your head up. That's right. All right. That was a beautiful rap.
Where's
folks.
Kanye dancing?
Hey,
Homeboy say he got a bad.
Funny because I'm single.
Tonight I'm single.
He sounds like he's on every drug.
By that time he was.
Yeah,
It
I'm
was
about to
definitely
say,
on a lot of
he's probably being very honest.
controlled substances.
Well, real, thank you for that.
For shizzle.
Thank you.
Bars.
On that note, we don't need to say anything after that.
No,
we
we're
don't,
just
on
gonna
that on a
sign
high
out.
note, on the highest of notes.
Peace in the land.
This is the last episode podcast. Appreciate y'all pulling up, breaking bread, getting fed. Kira, thank you for sitting
Yes.
sitting with us one more again.
One more
Takes a
game,
courtesy and bow.
Maybe one more again too though.
Maybe a three-peat.
Maybe a three-peat.
Oh.
I'm on
Oh, is it a
it. You own it.
All right, y'all. We're gonna go before we get into these lyrics.
Right. Before we start.